Hello, welcome once again. Now we'll be diving into if and else statement. This is one of the interesting topic in JavaScript. So if and else statement is what you are using, it's just like a conditional statement. A conditional statement in the sense that you are telling JavaScript, if this work, do this, otherwise do this. Because sometimes we even make use of conditional statement in our day-to-day life whereby you give somebody a condition, if this is this, then do this, or else do this. So the same thing is applicable to JavaScript. So for example, I have my if statement. I have like if, let's say, statement, if statements equals true, then run this, else run this, run this. So I know you'll be surprised all this error. Yes, we are not using the correct syntax. I just want to show you like what you should know, like the how the layout is. So now let me dive into the main concept. For example, I said let n equals 0, right? So I can now come and say if, if n is, let's say, is less than 0, then if n is less than 0, let's say log, also the log, this is correct, right? So else, that is, if it doesn't, if it's not, that is meaning of else. You can say log, it is not. You can say it is not. So automatically what we're going to see in the console is it is not. Why and how does this thing work? So now in if and else statements, that is conditional statement block, how it works is that when you use if, this is the condition it's listening to. So for this first line of code, or for this first block of code, it will check this condition. If this condition is met, then it will execute any function, the function that you wrote here, or the code that you wrote here. But then if is not, if this condition is not met, then this one is what is going to show. So now, assuming I want to log this is correct on the console, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do something like this. Okay, sorry, I have 0. I'm supposed to have 10, or let's say, okay, let me say 10. So you see here now, I say any should be equal to, so now I say that here any is less than 10. So you see how it is, this is correct, right? This is correct. But assuming I say that any is less than 0, you see, this one, this is, it is not correct. So I can even put it is not correct so that the sentence will be complete. See, it is not correct. This is what I have. So there's another one that is known as what? Else if. So for example, I have my if n still less than, any less than 10, right? And then I have my log, yeah, let's say, yeah, it is. So you see, this is already true because it's showing me, yeah, it is. But assuming I make it to be what, like this, you see that I'm not seeing anything. So there's another line of code known as what? Else if, and then my curly braces, I can start to say log, we are testing. You see, else if, So I omitted something. It's supposed to be something like this. So else if n, let's say, greater than 2. So now what is happening here now is, in our previous one we have if this, else this. So now we are seeing something like if this, then else if this, then the last one, let's say else, let's say, what should I say? Now you come. So what is happening here now is, remember in the previous one we have if and then else. So now here we have another additional line of code, right? So what this is saying is that for the first time you initialize this to 0, then you now ask JavaScript if this condition is met, then run this. But if it's not met, then check this one. This is an alternative to this first condition. So if this one is also met, then log this or execute this function. Then if both of them is not met, then give me this last one. That's how it works. So JavaScript will first check, is this one met? If it's met, it will run this thing and stop. But assuming this is met, this is not met, the condition is not met, then it will now come down and be like, what of this? Is the condition met? If no, it's now log this one. But if the condition is met here, it will log this one and stop. So, but if the 2 is not correct, then it will now log this last one. For example, I can also put n to be less than 0 here. So you see that the last one now will not be now will come, because the two conditions are not correct. That is now log this one. But if either of these two is correct, it will just log the code, line of code below it, and then stops. So now for the last one, that's what we call the ternary operation. The ternary operations, something like this. I will have something like this. The ternary, when you talk of the ternary operation, whatever is spelling. So look at how the syntax goes. I have first my condition. Then after my condition, I now have my what? This, and then the first one, let's say, um first expression, right? Then I can have something like this. Then the second what? Expression. You see it? So let me show, this is just how it is. This is the syntax behind it. So let me show you guys how you're going to, how it work on a code. Let's log this. So for example, I have still my n needs to be initialized to 0. So if this n is actually greater than 0, or let's say is greater than 2, if this is greater than 2, I want you to, first one, if it's greater than 2, then let it be true. Otherwise, let it be what? False. So let's see what it work in the console. So you see it's false. So now it's already checked. Here is 0, and 0 is no greater than 2, right? 0 is no greater than 2. So, but if I now come here and say 0 to be greater than 0, okay, it's also false because 0 is not greater than 0, right? But if I come and say 0 is equals to 0, okay, it's still saying false. All right, so I can decide to say 0, let's say 10, and then I have something like less than, actually 0 is less than 10, so I will see true. So this is the ternary operation. That is the combination of if and else statements. This is exactly what is happening here. So I hope you find this video helpful, and we see you in the next video.